G'day, I'm Paul. So the Toyota Kluger, or the Highlander as it's also known elsewhere around the world, it's one of the best-selling SUVs here in Australia. Families absolutely love them. But up until now, you could only pick a petrol V6 or a hybrid 4-cylinder. But now there's this is the updated version. It comes with a turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol. So today we're going to take this for a bit of a drive and see what it's like. This one here is the mid-spec GXL. It's in all-wheel drive trim. It's priced at just over $63,000. That's too expensive. The entire range kicks off at just under 50 grand. And it competes with things like the Hyundai Palisade, the Mazda CX-9, and also the Nissan Pathfinder as well. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. That way you can find out every single time we drive a turbocharged SUV. So let's talk exterior. You've got 7 colors to pick from. Orbit Black is going to set you back $675. So what do you reckon about the design? Look, I know I shouldn't like SUVs, but I actually think it looks pretty good. So you got a big grille down the front here with these silver trim highlights and a big Toyota logo, and then a kind of matte black finish down the bottom here. You've got a set of full LED headlights. I think they look pretty good. You do have incandescent globe in there for the indicator as well, with keeping that in mind. Around the side here to the wheels, 18-inch alloy wheels come standard, and they're on a pretty chunky profile as well. So it's a 65 profile tyre there. So I'm tipping this is probably going to ride well. I think we found with the last Kluger that we drove that even on the big wheels, it actually rides really nice and comfortably. So we'll see how it all performs here. A little bit of wheel arch cladding there because all-wheel drive. Keep in mind, it only has a ground clearance of a little over 200 mil, so you're not going to be doing too much off-roading in it. You've got a body-coloured mirror up the top there, indicator built into here, no 360 camera or puddle lamps under there by the look of it. A little bit of chrome trim that runs down the side of the car, roof rails, privacy glass, and then whip around to the back with me. Around the back here, pretty straightforward setup. You have partial LED tail lamps. You have a shark fin aerial up the top there, a brake lamp just here, and then Kluger down the bottom here. No designation for the grade or whether it's all-wheel drive or not at the back here, so it's pretty sort of tidy, and a diffuser down the bottom there as well. So let me know what you reckon about the design in the comments section below. Do you still think this is a good-looking SUV, or do I need to get my eyes checked? So we are inside the Kluger. We will kick off with the key. So you've got lock, unlock, boot, panic, then on the back you have Kluger there. Like I mentioned before, this is called a Kluger in Australia, but a Highlander in other markets. It's a proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket. Then once you're inside, you have a push button start. So have a look at this. Aside from the engine, they have changed a little bit here inside the cabin. It was one of the things that we had a major gripe over, and it was the infotainment screen. It had this tiny, sort of pathetic looking infotainment screen when this larger unit was available in the States. Finally, it's available here in Australia, and it looks to feature one of the infotainment systems we've seen before in Lexus vehicles. So I'm keen to have a little bit of a play with that shortly. Aside of that, it's all pretty straightforward. A lot of piano black around the top sections there, and the rest is sort of fairly functional with lots of storage as well. In terms of the surfaces here, this is all quite hard to the touch, but it gets softer as you work your way around there. I quite like this sort of stitching setup here as well in this rubber material too. So it kind of just gives it a bit of a nice vibe here. This center section is soft to the touch, and it's soft on the doors as well. How soft is it? Well, we've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Now, what about build quality? So, a little bit sort of loose through there. That's all a little loose up the top there as well. In our door test, it's okay. Just sounds a tiny bit tinny. So, let's have a chat about this new infotainment system. So in terms of size, it is just over 12 inches. It is a color touchscreen. Some of the lower models do get the smaller screen, but from this grade upwards, we're getting that bigger screen. Then the top spec also has a full digital display here ahead of the driver instead of just that smaller LCD screen in the center. In terms of functionality, this thing is great. So it's nice and fast. It's very responsive. They've got a nice meaty CPU there as well. So everything sort of moves along really nicely. And I also like that they've updated the voice controls, so the voice controls are now easier to use as well. Before I run you through some of the other features, it is worth noting that these now all come with connected services. So this has 12 months complimentary, so it does mean you get a button up here that says SOS. You can hit that to be connected to someone to give you assistance if you need. You can also track the vehicle, connect it to your app. It has all of that remote functionality through an embedded SIM, which is pretty cool. On the smartphone mirroring front, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Apple CarPlay is wireless. Have a look at this. Nice and fast and sharp as well, so that's pretty impressive. And this is what Android Auto looks like. So again, full screen integration and nice and quick as well. So pretty impressed with that overall. On the audio front, you have AM, FM, DAB, digital radio, plus you also have a 6-speaker sound system. Look, sound system's okay, nothing sort of too crash hot, but you know, it does the job. Now, ahead of the driver here, you also have a smaller display. We'll flick through some of those functions when we go for a drive later on. Now, safety tech, you have autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You have blind spot monitoring built into the wing mirror. You have radar cruise control. You also have a lane keeping assistant with a lane centering function that we'll test later on. You have rear cross traffic alert. On the parking front, you have front and rear parking sensors and a reverse view camera. I'll show you what that looks like. I'm actually going to turn the car on because it beeps very annoyingly otherwise. So put that into reverse. Here it is there. So the quality of that is actually really good. So you can clearly see what's going on there. Those guidelines move with the steering wheel, and then you can also see the sonar there for the rear parking sensors and the front parking sensors too. So pretty impressed with that. Very impressive camera and nice and high resolution. And finally, what does the horn sound like? Here we go. Oh, that sounds very confident. Okay, let's talk practicality, and we'll start off with our connectivity. You have a stack of great connectivity options here, which is refreshing compared to some of the other SUVs in the segment. You've got a 12-volt outlet off to the left, 2 USB-C ports, a USB-A port. Here in the center, you've got another 12-volt outlet as well. In terms of storing your phone, there is no wireless phone charging, but they've been quite clever in the way that they've done this. So you've got a little tray up the top here that you can slot your phone onto. And then there's this little plastic section that allows you to run a cable through here. So it's not going to be sort of dangle fest here in terms of cables, which I reckon is great. And coffee cup, where are you going to store that? So it fits in there nicely. So you're not going to delid it. You also have teeth in there as well. So when you go to lob your big bottle in, it holds it in perfectly fine. This fits inside the door. Let's see if the big bottle fits. Oh, I'll leave the cable behind. I don't think it actually will by the look of it. That is so bizarre. There is stacks of room there for them to have made that door sort of wider to fit a bottle, but for some reason they didn't. Other storage, you have a little nook here just next to the driver's knee. This center console is great, so you can slide the lid back to get access to it. You have a coin tray up the top, but then it goes all the way down. It is a really cavernous space in there. You've got a glove box down here that's pretty reasonably sized. You have storage here along with down the bottom, and finally a sunglasses holder up the top. Now, what about your comfort? So you have dual zone automatic climate control up the front here. You also have rear climate control from the front. Heated seats for the front row, electric seat adjustment as well. So you can go forwards, backwards. Backrest can go forwards, backwards. You can lift the front and the back of the seat as well. And then you have lumbar support too. Passenger seat is full electric as well. Seats are super comfy too. We tend to find with Kluger that, I don't know, it's just a good long distance tourer and the seats just hug you in really nicely. In terms of steering adjustment, it offers both tilt and reach adjustment. And on our reach test, all of this stuff is easy to reach while you're driving. Okay, second row. Look at this. There is stacks of knee room there. Toe room's excellent. Headroom is really good as well. This is a super spacious place to be seated. In terms of your other creature comforts, you've got mat pockets. This is where your third zone of climate control is. You have 2 USB-C ports down the bottom here. Your air vents are nestled into the roof there to give you cooling on your face. You've got a center armrest here with 2 cup holders, so bottle can live in there, but there's no teeth, so it kind of just moves around a little bit. But this can then live inside the door as well. In terms of the kids, you have 2 ISOFIX points on the 2 outboard seats here in the second row, and then 3 top tether points in the second row. None of that for the third row. Finally, our window test. So it's auto up and down. Let's see if it goes all the way down. Look at that. Good job, Toyota. Now, what about the third row? I'm going to try get in there and see what it's like. So this slides forward and then I'm going to clamber on in. I don't think this space is built for adults, but we'll just see what it's like anyway. So, okay, I don't know how this is going to work. So I'll lock the seat into that position. Yeah, so I've got no knee room at all. Headroom is okay. Width-wise, we're okay as well because you've got 2 cup holders there on either side, plus air vents as well. Igor, how much room is left there for the passenger? Doesn't look like it's a great deal. Mind you, there was a fair bit of space there to start with, so maybe this isn't eating into it too much. But yeah, I think as an adult, I probably wouldn't want to be spending a long amount of time here, but I think as a kid, this should be okay. So let's see how much room there is behind the third row. So what about your cargo space? So you have a powered tailgate. Crack that open. Pretty slow. Gets there in the end though. And enough room for me to fit under as well, which is good. So here with the third row up, you have a little under 250 litres of space. It's actually not a bad space at all. It's quite sort of cavernous. Beneath the cargo floor here, you have your tools of the trade. This is where you hide your cargo blind as well. I'll show you what it looks like with the bags just in this section. Whoops. I think we can actually, there you go, fit the suitcase plus the laptop as well. If you do want more space, you drop your third row out of the way. That expands the space to around 550 litres. Then you can expand the space by dropping the second row as well to 1150 litres. So we are on the road in the Kluger now. I mentioned earlier, turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol, so it's now a 2.4 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder. That replaces the outgoing petrol V6 engine, which I actually quite liked, if I'm honest. So this produces around 200 kilowatts of power and over 400 newton meters of torque. So they're pretty healthy power figures. And that's all mated to an 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission. And in this particular trim here, this is the all-wheel drive version. So it's able to send torque to the rear axle as required, but you'll see here on the screen that it's predominantly driven as a front-wheel drive until you really lay into it. So I'll show you what I mean. If I basically jump on the throttle there, you can see everything starts happening all at the same time, but if I'm gentle and light on the throttle, it's predominantly just sending torque to the front axle unless we get to a point where I have steering input or there's a reason to actually be pulsing torque to the rear. So what does a 2.4 litre Turbo 4 feel like behind the wheel in a Kluger? Let's punch this. Actually has a fair bit of squirt. So over 400 newton meters of torque really does mean that you do feel everything that's going on. So yeah, it's not a neck snapping amount, but it is actually quite pleasing to drive. Now this also has a stop start system. So I'm just going to come to a stop now and see what that feels like. All right, here we go. Just wait for that to kill. Wow, that is so smooth. That is really smooth. That's an impressive system there. I quite like that. Now, Toyota's combined fuel economy is around 9 litres per 100 Ks. We're currently averaging 12.5 litres per 100 Ks, so it is using a bit more fuel than I thought it would. I guess this was always the issue with the petrol V6 anyway. It is quite a heavy vehicle, and then when you put a V6 engine in that instance under the bonnet, or in this instance a turbocharged 4, it is going to chew through a bit of fuel. So I think that is worth keeping in mind, that while the hybrid is more expensive, I can see you paying that back in real terms much quicker than you would with other vehicles such as your diesel and petrol alternatives. Now I thought I'd call this out. I'll talk about the actual drive modes in just a sec, but you do have some light off-road modes here. So you have mud and sand, normal, rock and dirt, you have a hill descent control and a snow mode as well. So there's a fair bit of stuff there. Let me know in the comments section below, do you want us to do some light off-roading with the SUVs in this segment? If you do, we'll tee it up and we'll make it happen. Now, in terms of your actual drive modes, you have Sport, Normal and Eco. I'm going to bump this up to Sport. Go for a little punt around the track. There is no adaptive damping or anything like that, but keen to see what this feels like with a little bit of speed. Brakes feel okay. I'll tip it into here. Look, it has got a fair degree of body roll because it is quite soft, but has a stack of punch, and as I lay into the throttle around the back here, you can feel it actively sending torque to the rear axle to get things moving. We've got our left kink here with a bump. Yeah, it is pretty soft through there, but I'm going to tell you, for a big bus like this, it is actually okay. It isn't very sharp in the sense that you're not going to be doing any sort of mountain runs with it, but in saying that, it is very predictable and you know exactly what it's going to do. So let's see what it's like over this back section here as we get to our back straight. Yeah, look, it all actually feels pretty good, and we'll see what that mid-range is like on the back straight. We'll lay into that. All right, here it comes. Yeah, look, it's picking up speed there. I'm going to nudge 160. Yeah, nice. It's actually not too bad. Okay, time for our sine waves. We'll dial up 130 k's an hour. These simulate a choppy section of highway road, such as when you're overtaking or in parts of Australia where you can do 130. Wow, it is already feeling very wallowy through there. So, wow, that is terrible. Wow. I'm just looking back at Igor here. I think this is potentially one of the worst cars we've tested over the sine waves. That's crazy. Yeah, look, I'm pretty disappointed with that. That just shows you that Toyota really hasn't gone to the effort to drive this in country Australia and actually get a proper feel for how it should be tuned. It is way too soft, and as a result of that, when you hit the first bump, it's sort of really starting to feel very light on its feet. By the time you've hit the second or third, you're starting to bring the body down as the next oscillation comes up, and it really is just causing it to crash over that. So you can amplify that if you have a whole family on board and you go to overtake on a freeway. Yeah, it is really not very impressive, and I think if you are going to be doing any serious driving in the country, I'd be looking at an aftermarket suspension setup. And it's a shame because in and around the city, it's actually quite comfortable. It is really sort of a nice place to be seated because it is very soft and feels refined in that sense. But yeah, once the speed does pick up on a dodgy section of road like that, you're definitely going to feel it. Okay, time for our dodgy country road section. We do this at 90 k's an hour. I'm thinking, given how soft the suspension is here, it should actually excel. And we've got our condensed sine wave coming up as well. God, this is a terrible stretch of road. Okay, so condensed sine wave, we'll see how this performs over this. Yeah, not very well. It is floating right over that, and that is because the ride is so soft it's not able to bring itself back down to meet those grooves. But in saying that, it is actually really quite comfortable over this dodgy section of road. This sort of simulates a corrugated dirt road or something like that, and it's sort of really floating over it nicely at 90 k's an hour. In terms of just low-speed drivability, I really like the way this steering feels. It's very light, so it means parking is quite straightforward, especially with that pretty decent reverse view camera. On the visibility front, I can see clearly down the front of the bonnet there. Big wing mirrors as well. Visibility out the back isn't amazing, especially if you do have that third row up. It is quite compromised there, so thinking that Toyota could do with one of those digital mirrors, because they actually come in really handy if you do have a third row that prevents you from actually seeing properly out the back. So you have a brake towing capacity of 2,000 kilograms and a turning circle of just over 11 meters. Just in terms of road noise, look, it's not too bad. I am finding on the coarser sections of coarse chip roads that it does tend to come into the cabin a bit at highway speeds, but it isn't anything too bad. Okay, time to test our semi-autonomous functions. So I'm going to get the speed up to 70 k's an hour, and then I'm going to set the cruise control. And then what I'm going to do is switch on our lane centering function. It also has the lane centering and steering assist active. So we're going to test this in the 3 outer lanes. So far so good in this lane. It's keeping us fairly center there without sort of too many dramas. I am only just holding the wheel here. If you're using this stuff on the road, you're going to have to hold the wheel properly, but just for the purposes of this test, it's doing well. We're going to jump onto the 2 outer banked lanes now as well. We're not testing how well the car banks. What we want to do is test how much torque it's willing to apply to the steering to hold it within that lane. So here comes the center lane, so we'll just wait for that to go active. Okay, so it's kind of, there we go, that's active. I've let go of the wheel. That's doing a very good job there. We're staying pretty much dead center to that lane, so that's really awesome. Okay, jump up to the 3rd lane here. See how this fares. So there it is there. Wait for that to go active. If it can, it might not want to. No, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, so it's only detecting 1. Oh no, there we go, it's detecting 2. It is kind of a little indecisive. It doesn't know what it wants to do, so I'll let it try just a little bit longer. It's kind of halfway there at the moment. Trying to get a little closer to this lane. No, it is not liking it if I let go of the wheel there. Oh no, it came together at the end, so hold on, let me just try that one more time. Sorry, I'm wasting everyone's time here. Okay, so that's seeing the lines. Yeah, but it's not actually activating the lane centering portion of things. So it is a pass in lane 1 and 2, but a fail here for lane 3. Yeah, no matter how much I try, it's sort of, it comes in at the last second, but oh no, look, it's steering itself back in and then it goes again. No, all right, that's a fail there, but a very good pass for lane 1 and 2. Okay, it's time for some performance testing. There is no official 0 to 100 time, but I'll pop this into sport mode. We will turn traction control off just to be on the safe side, load up a few revs and go all the way through to 120. So here we go. A little slow off the start, but it's moving. All right, there's 100. 120. All right, let's see what this looks like. So 0 to 100, 8.86 seconds. So not the quickest thing in the world, but also not the slowest, and 80 to 120 in 5.52 seconds, which isn't too bad. That's the figure you want to know if you're overtaking. So once it is moving, it actually has a little bit of punch there, which is pretty good. Let's go do a brake. We'll see how quickly it stops from 100 k's an hour. Okay, let's see how it goes. Crank this up to 100. And then we'll hit our braking marker. Let's see what it all looks like. There it is. Gee, it is a little bit ponderous once it comes to a stop. It's kind of just fishtailing around a little bit there. So 100 to 0, 3.21 seconds and 43.51 meters. So it's actually not a bad stopping performance despite that sort of little sensation there. So yeah, not a bad effort. If you do want to see how Kluger compares to other cars that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Time for our reverse speed test. Let's see how quickly it'll go in reverse. I did find with Hilux that if you turn traction control off, it will actually go a little bit faster. So here we go. There it is, so 47 kilometers an hour. So the Toyota Kluger. Look, I was a little bit sad to see the V6 go because the petrol V6 was such a smooth engine, made a great note and was just a lot of fun to drive. But this really takes it up another notch. It has so much punch behind the wheel, and if you don't want that sort of boring driving sensation of the hybrid, this really fills in those gaps. It does use a lot more fuel than the hybrid, so that is worth keeping in mind. But if you do want a little bit of fun behind the wheel and a normal driving experience with a great gearbox, I think this is the one to go for. Those big interior improvements also make a massive change as well. That tech has totally uplifted the inside of this car, so very impressed with it. Let me know, have you bought a Kluger? Have you got a new one on the go? Let us know in the comments section below. I'm very keen to hear what you think. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, drive safely.